Hi Year 10. In today's lesson, we're going to do an introduction to parabolas, which are a type of non-linear graph. Non-linear meaning not a straight line, right? So we're going to look at what parabolas are and what they look like, and of course, how to draw them. Okay, so we're just going to do a brief intro, and we're going to do a lot more with parabolas as we study this particular topic. Okay, but let's begin by looking at what it is. So, what is a parabola? Well, let's start by describing the shape. A parabola is a U-shaped curve. It looks like a U. And, well, of course, we know that all graphs actually have an equation, right? We know that straight lines have an equation of y equals mx plus b, right? Hopefully you know that already. But we know that all graphs have an equation. Well, what's the equation of a parabola? The equation of the parabola looks something like this. In fact, as I'm writing this out, hopefully you see that it's a quadratic, all right? It's the stuff that we've been doing, except we've just been focusing on the algebra side of things, how to factorize it. But now we're going to learn how to graph quadratics. And when we graph a quadratic, we get a parabola, right? But of course, let's actually think about the shape of a parabola first, right? So what does a parabola look like? So let's draw a parabola. A parabola will look something like this. And let's actually have a look at the key features of a parabola. Okay? The first key feature is that this point here is what we call the vertex. The vertex is sort of the valley, or the point of the lowest point of the parabola. Okay, and it turns out that this vertex actually lies on this line, and this line is what we call the axis of symmetry, right? And as you hear this phrase, axis of symmetry, hopefully you're beginning to notice one really important feature of a parabola, and it's the feature that parabolas are symmetrical. Yeah, you see that whatever's on the right and whatever's on the left, they're symmetrical, right? Parabolas are symmetrical, okay, and that's why they have an axis of symmetry. Now, of course, the other features are very obvious. We have some x-intercepts here, right? These are x-intercepts, right? We've actually got two x-intercepts. We've got one there, and we've got one right here, right? We also have one y-intercept, which is right here, right? That is a y-intercept. Now, we've only got one of those. And as you can see, that is what a parabola looks like. Now, we're going to be using these words, vertex and axis of symmetry, and x-intercepts, y-intercepts, a lot. So make sure that you actually do understand this terminology, all right? So if you ever forget, you can always look back to this diagram, okay? Now, of course, when we are looking at parabolas, parabolas don't always look like the one that I've just drawn here, right? Parabolas actually can look a bit different, right? So let's first categorize them into two sort of groups. There are parabolas that open up. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean they look like a smiley face, right? Right? They open up to the sky, right? Whereas some parabolas, they look like a sad face, right? So they open downwards. So they look something like this. Okay? And make sure I draw one that's symmetrical. Okay? So you'll notice that one's facing up, one's facing down. Okay, and parabolas come in these two categories. You might think, oh, well, sir, do they ever open sideways? Um, they do, but we're not going to study those. And if you do choose advanced math, we'll study sideways parabolas in year 11 and 12. Okay, but for year 10, don't worry. Okay, so of course, once you know all these things, let's actually start drawing parabolas. Okay, well, let's do a brief intro into sketching graphs. You know, hopefully, back when we were sketching straight lines, we use this thing called a table of values, right? And we graph parabolas, we start graphing parabolas in the same way that we graph straight lines. We just get the equation, we draw up a table of values like the one here, right? I put an x here and a y here, and I just choose some values. I'm going to maybe start from maybe -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, right? And I put these x values into the equation, right? And when I do so, I'll just fill these in, right? So we'll get, so that will give us 9. This will give us 3, 1, 3, 9, and 3 squared is 9, times 2 is 18, so 19. Right? And so once we plug these things in, all I need to do is plot the points onto my graph and sort of just connect the dots, right? And so let's actually do that, right? So I've got -2, 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 is up here. We've got -1, 3. So -1, 3. And it looks like I've got 1, 3. Oh, I forgot 0, 1. So 0, 1 is here. And 2, 9. And I'm not going to graph the last one because it's actually off my axes, so I won't be able to graph it. But hopefully you can see that it sort of forms a really skinny parabola, not like the fat ones that I drew earlier. Okay, this is still a parabola, and make sure that when we draw the parabola, it's actually a smooth curve. Okay, no sharp edges. Okay, it's not a V. Don't draw a V. It needs to be a smooth curve, right? Like a nice, gentle bend, right? A U. Okay, and so let's actually make my line a bit more solid. Okay, and that is how we graph parabolas. Now, of course, we're not always going to draw a table of values. In the coming lessons, we're going to look at how we can draw parabolas quickly without using a table of values, using some neat tricks, right? But for today, I want you to actually practice drawing a parabola using a table of values, because this will always be your go-to backup plan if you forget the neat tricks that I'll teach you in the future, right? You can always go back to using a table of values. Okay, so I've got 3 equations there, and I want you to have a go. All right. If you want to check your answer, of course, you can always go to Desmos and type your equations in and check if you've actually graphed it correctly. Okay, so thank you, Year 10. I will be back on Thursday to teach you more. Bye.